You're not inconsistent because you're lazy. You're inconsistent because you keep avoiding the part that actually matters. Think about it. You don't struggle to stay consistent with the things that feel good. Scrolling is easy. Watching videos is easy. Planning, learning, getting ready, you can do that for hours. But the moment it's time to do something uncomfortable, send that email, post a video, reach out, put yourself out there, you hesitate. You delay, you overthink. You tell yourself you'll do it later, and then later never comes. So you start telling yourself a story. You think you need more discipline. You think you need to be more consistent. You think something is wrong with you. But that's not the problem. The real problem is that you've trained yourself to avoid discomfort. And as long as you keep doing that, you will always feel inconsistent, no matter how ambitious you are. It's not the path. Most people think the problem is the path. But if you're honest, you've already changed paths multiple times. Be honest. How many times have you restarted this year? You've tried different ideas, different business models, different ways of making money, and every time it starts the same. You think, this one might be different, this actually makes sense, I can see myself doing this. So you go all in for a few days, maybe a few weeks, you start planning everything, watching content, researching, mapping things out in your head, and it feels like progress. But then something happens. The initial excitement fades, it stops feeling new, it stops feeling easy, and this is the moment that actually matters, because this is where progress is built. But instead, you start questioning everything again. You think maybe this isn't right, maybe I'm wasting my time, maybe I should pivot early before it's too late. So you switch, new idea, new plan, same result. And every time you do that, you don't just lose time, you lose energy, because starting something new always feels good. It's exciting, it gives you momentum, it makes you feel like you're back in control. But that feeling fades quickly, and now you're back where you started, just with less energy than before. Because every restart forces you to start from zero again. You have to learn everything again, build momentum again, figure things out again. And over time, that becomes exhausting. So you end up stuck in this loop where you're always doing something but never actually moving forward. And here's the truth most people don't realize. It's not that nothing works, it's that you haven't stayed with anything long enough to see it work. Most paths work. Lead generation works, outreach works, content works, sales works, but they only work if you give them time, if you go deep enough, if you stay long enough to get through the part where nothing seems to be happening. Because results don't come from switching, they come from compounding. Small actions repeated consistently over time. But compounding only works if you don't reset it, and every time you switch, you reset the clock. Back to zero, no momentum, no skill, no advantage. So the goal isn't to find the perfect path. The goal is to pick one path and stay on it long enough for it to work. Because once you get through that boring phase, once you push past the uncertainty, once you stay long enough to see progress, everything starts to change. That's where most people quit. And if you don't quit, you automatically move ahead. Not because you're smarter, not because you chose better, but because you stayed. Because every path feels right at the start, and every path feels wrong when it gets uncomfortable. And if you keep judging your decisions based on that feeling, you keep restarting and never give anything a real chance to work. The boring phase. Every single path, no matter how good it is, has a phase where it becomes repetitive. And this is the phase nobody really talks about, because online everything looks exciting, everything looks fast, everything looks like it's always moving. You see results, wins, big moments, but what you don't see is what it actually takes to get there. Because in reality, progress looks like doing the same thing over and over again. Sending emails, following up, taking sales calls, having similar conversations. And most entrepreneurs, even the ones getting results, are dealing with that every single day. It's repetitive, it's predictable, and a lot of the time, it's boring. You just don't see that part. You only see the highlights. So when you experience that boredom yourself, you think something is wrong. At the start, it feels fresh. You're learning, experimenting, and there's energy behind it. But then it turns into a routine, and routine turns into boredom, and boredom feels like a problem. You start thinking, why does this feel so slow? Why does this feel so repetitive? Is this really what I want to be doing? But nothing is wrong. You just entered the phase where results are built. The phase most people avoid. And this is where most people fall off. Not because it's too difficult, but because it's no longer exciting. You've just entered the phase where results are built. The phase most people avoid. And this is where most people fall off. Not because it's too difficult, but because it's no longer exciting enough to hold their attention. But if you can stay in this phase longer than most people are willing to, That's where everything starts to change. The passion lie. So instead of recognizing what's actually happening, you tell yourself a better sounding story. You say, this just isn't for me, or I'm not passionate about this, or I need something that excites me more. And that sounds logical, it sounds like self-awareness, but most of the time, it's just an escape. Because passion always feels real at the start, when everything is new, when there's no pressure, and when you haven't hit resistance yet. But the moment things get repetitive, the moment it requires consistency, and the moment it stops being fun, that feeling disappears. And then you think you chose wrong, but you didn't. You just reached the part where passion isn't enough anymore. Because even if you pick something you enjoy, most of the work won't feel like that. You won't spend your day doing the exciting part. You'll spend it doing the same things over and over again. Solving problems, repeating actions, and dealing with things you don't enjoy. That's what business actually looks like. So if you keep asking yourself, do I feel excited doing this? You'll keep restarting. Because no path stays exciting all the time. And the truth is, most paths work. Lead generation, dropshipping, high ticket sales, but they only work if you stay with them long enough to get good. Because what actually creates results isn't passion, it's proficiency. It's doing something enough time that you improve, and staying with it long enough for things to start clicking. And once you get better, once you start seeing results, that's when you begin to enjoy it. Not before, after. So if you keep using passion as your filter, you'll keep chasing something that doesn't exist, and you'll keep resetting your progress again and again. The reality shift. That's the part nobody tells you, and it's the part most people get completely wrong. You don't enjoy something first and then get results. It works the other way around. You struggle through it first, you repeat it, you get better at it, and then once it starts working, that's when you begin to enjoy it. Because now there's feedback, now there's progress, now it actually feels real. But in the beginning, there's nothing. No validation, no proof, just effort. Think about the last time you actually got good at something. Let's say for example it's the gym. At the start you probably didn't enjoy it that much. You felt tired, sore, and unsure of what you were doing. But you kept going, and over time you got stronger, you started seeing results, and that's when you began to enjoy it. Or think about learning a new skill. At the beginning you're slow, you make mistakes, and it feels frustrating. But after enough repetition, things start to click, and it becomes something you're confident in. Even at school, there were subjects you didn't like at first, but as you understood them more, they became easier, and you started to enjoy them. It's always the same pattern. You don't enjoy it first, you enjoy it after you've put the time in. But most people never reach that point because they quit during the phase when nothing seems to be happening. So if you're waiting to feel excited before you commit, you'll never stay long enough to see results. Instead of asking what's the perfect niche or what should I be doing, ask yourself, am I willing to stick with this long enough for it to actually work? Because that's the real decision. The identity check. At the start, you will feel inconsistent, you will feel unsure, you will hesitate, you will question yourself constantly, and you'll feel like you're doing things wrong. That's not a sign that you should stop. That's the starting point. That's what it looks like for everyone. The difference is how people interpret that feeling. Most people see it as a warning. They think something must be wrong, that it isn't working, and that they should change something. But the people who succeed interpret it differently. They see it as part of the process. They expect it, they don't panic when things feel uncertain, and they don't quit when things feel slow. They just keep going, because they understand something very simple. You don't become confident first, you become confident after you've done something enough times. And that only happens if you stay long enough with it. So if you keep feeling like you need a better path, a better idea, or a better plan, it's probably not the path. It's the moment where it stopped being exciting. It's the part where it got repetitive, where it slowed down, where it actually started to matter. Because that's where real progress begins. And right now, if you're being honest, you don't have a clarity problem, you don't have a knowledge problem, you don't even have a strategy problem. You have a consistency problem. And consistency doesn't come from finding something perfect, it comes from staying when it's not. It comes from continuing when it feels slow, when it feels boring, and when there's no immediate reward. So instead of starting over again, ask yourself one question. What would happen if I just didn't quit this time? Because that's the moment everything changes. And if you're being honest with yourself, you don't need more videos right now. You already know what to do. You just haven't been doing it. That's exactly why I built Lead Incubator. It's not another place to sit and learn. It's a place where you go to actually pick one path, take action, and get your first client. Because that's the only thing that changes how you think. Not more information, proof. So if you're tired of restarting and you're ready to stick with something long enough to see it work, you can join below. It's completely free to join. I'll see you on the inside.